So the question is, what is pranayama? Pranayama is the word in yoga that is used for the breathing practices. When you stop to extend the breath, when you stop to change the breath. So all this realm of breathing techniques in yoga is called pranayama. Now, first thing is to differentiate pranayama, so the yogic breathing techniques, from other practices related to the breath. For example, breath work, or things that maybe some sports use in order to enhance the capacity of breathing. In the yoga tradition, we could say that it's only really a breathing technique for yoga if you are concerned with a few things. The first thing is place. So in which area of the body am I sensing the breath? Am I sensing the breath, or I'm going to direct the breath to the belly, to the chest, to the back? Or I'm going to sense the effects of the breath on different parts of the body, such as the feet or the hands. So place. The second is time. In general, just breathing in and out is not exactly considered pranayama. You should be concerned about the duration of the breath. Am I inhaling in 10 seconds, in 20 seconds? Am I exhaling 10 seconds, 20 seconds? Am I holding the breath for a number of seconds, and so on? So you see, you have this idea of place and this idea of duration of the breath. Then the third aspect to be accounted for is repetition. So in the yoga tradition, normally don't see an idea of doing one long breath. Like you just hold your breath as long as you can and that's it. No, there's an idea of repetition. For how many sets am I going to do this? So let's say I'm going to inhale for 10 seconds, I'm going to exhale for 20 seconds, directing my inhalation towards the belly region, and I'll do that for 12 repetitions. So this will be then a yoga technique. Another point to be considered is what's called samantraka and amantraka. Traditionally, all pranayamas normally would include mantra, which is the repetition of syllables, sounds, let's say, lack of a better word, phrases, which are considered special, even magical. So actually the counting traditionally was not done by seconds, like 1, 2, 3. It was normally done by mantra. The duration of the mantra marks 1 unit of time. And then the last thing that is a differential for the yoga tradition is kumbhaka. Now kumbhaka is the holding of the breath. Holding the breath in, holding the breath out. We can even go as far as to say that pranayama is really only pranayama when you have kumbhaka, when you're actually doing the breath holds. According to tradition, the kumbhakas, this holding of the breaths, are the ones that give the highest effects of the breathing practices. Regarding the effects of these breathing techniques, of course, the first one, more obvious, is physical. So you can develop your capacity of breathing. Now you can make the respiratory system and the cardiovascular system better. You have also effects on the nervous system, so emotional effects. Now you can modulate your nervous system, you can de-stimulate, you can calm the nervous system, you can stimulate, you can up the nervous system by the patterns of breathing that you choose to apply and that you repeat doing. So we can use, on that sense, these breathing techniques to enhance physical capacity and also to change the experience of the nervous system, the emotional experience, the sensation that we have as a human being. Those two are very important, but we have to take into account that, let's say, the ancient yogis, the ones that really put forward those techniques, they were not exactly bothered about those aspects. They were looking to do these breathing techniques in order to have insight, in order to access what's called the subtle anatomy, or the subtle realm of experience of the body, which then is related to prana. Prana is what they used to call the life force. We could say that it's something that is more subtle than blood, more subtle than the nervous system, more subtle than any physical structure that we can normally touch and we can measure, at least so far. Maybe one day in the future science can also get a grip and be able to examine the pranic system. But these yogis were trying to access these subtle actions of the body, with a lack of a better word, which they call prana. And they said that this prana is the vital experience of the body. This prana traditionally speaking, is actually a substance. It's something. Sometimes you see people speaking of prana as, well, it's the nervous system, or prana is the circulatory system, it's the blood vessels. Or they say that prana is the feelings. Like if I'm feeling good, my prana is up. If I'm feeling down, my prana is down. But I would say from my experience, that's not accurate. Prana is actually something. It's a substance which can be accessed, it can be experienced by meditating on the breath, by meditating on the body, by calming the mind, and then certain realms of experience start to appear for the practitioner, for the yogi. And then once you have access to that realm of experience, then you are able to manage it, you are able to control it directly. So that's what the ancient yogis were looking for, to have insight on these nadis, on these pranic, let's say, tubes or channels, this transport system in the body, and to have experience, to have sensation of this prana, this life energy, how they decided to call it, and then being able to direct it or to store it. But for most practitioners nowadays, which maybe they don't have too much interest or time to practice to get insight into those, let's say, subtle, more deeper experiences, then yes, these pranayamas, they will be used for well-being and for feeling better and so on. Now, people normally ask, okay, how do I start developing these breathing techniques in the yoga system? The structure I will provide is the following. Ideally, initially, you learn how to breathe doing the postures. So certain postures are more geared towards inhalation. Certain postures are more geared towards exhalation. For example, an extension of the spine makes more sense to be an inhalation. A flexion, a forward bend of the spine makes more sense to be an exhalation. So different postures, they shape the breath. By doing the postures, you are enhancing the capacity of breathing, and you're enhancing your capacity to experience breathing. You're experiencing the body breathing in different ways, so you're getting access to the breath. So number one is do postures as if you're doing pranayama. Do postures using the breath, even counting the breath, even holding the breath sometimes. So you start to have that connection between your mind, the body, and the breath in the middle of the two. Once you are able to move properly with the breath, sense the breath, you can start to apply ujjayi, which is people would translate as the victorious breath. But basically it's that breath that you constrict the throat a little bit, and there's a hissing sound which is felt. That helps your mind to be internalized into the breath, and that also helps to control, to regulate the flow of the breath, to reduce it, to elongate it. We don't have time here to explain this ujjayi, but definitely you can easily check online. There's several resources that will teach how to do ujjayi, this throat breathing or this hissing sound breathing. Once this ujjayi and the movements of the breath are kind of mastered, then you can start the actual process of dealing with aspects of the breath, ratios, counting, and so on. The suggestion on the lineage that I'm part of is to normally start with the exhalation. So basically you're trying to make the exhalation longer, make the exhalation better. The exhalation in general is the one responsible in the system to calm down everything. It's the one that in a good way depresses the nervous system, it relaxes. So it's always better for people to first relax. If you want to do anything, if you want to try anything, if you want to experience anything, it's always better to be in a mood of relaxation. So normally we would start the training, specific training of the breath on the exhalation. Then the second one will be the inhalation. So exhalation first, get a good handle of the exhalation, inhalation afterwards. On that sense, when you start playing with exhalation and inhalation, you could do both still on postures, but also you could start doing sitting. But again, you need to have a good physical practice of yoga to be able to sit comfortably for a longer period of time. So then it comes the importance of asana, physical practice in yoga. But anyway, you start to do exhalation, inhalation, you can start to do sitting. So you're isolating the experience of the breath, not anymore moving here and there, but just sitting and experiencing the breath and then dealing with place, timing, and repetition. Once your breath of inhalation, exhalation in a sitting posture is very good, teachers, they have varied opinions on what to define being good or mastery. I would say that ideally you should look for having a breath that is around 30 seconds of inhalation, 30 seconds of exhalation. So that would be a good mark that you're able to start to have one breath per minute. Could also be inhale for 20 seconds, exhale for 40, inhale for 40, exhale for 20. So you start to have this mark of one breath per minute. That shows that there's a good development on your capacity to feel and to control the breath. Once that's done, then you start to apply the holds, the kumbhakas, holding the breath out, holding the breath in. But most people, they might not get to this point really to be able to fully do the kumbhakas properly without struggle. So it can take years of the previous stages. When the kumbhakas, these holds, start to be more mastered, then I would say the next step would be to start the nostril breathings, which means regulating the breath through different nostrils. Let's say inhale through the left, exhale through the right, inhale through the right, exhale through the left, which would be the classic Nadi Shodhana that you see a lot of comments, the alternate nostril breathing in yoga, which also are regarded traditionally as the highest technique, which would be to alternate which nostril is inhaling and exhaling. And then proper Nadi Shodhana would be when you're doing the alternate nostril breathing with the holdings of the breath. Classically speaking, the main one will be holding the breath in. But the Krishnamacharya tradition will also apply the holding of the breath out. But in any case, that will be the end stage when you're able to extend the breath at will. You're very comfortable sitting and doing for longer periods of time, number of repetitions. And now you're using each different nostrils and you're applying the holdings of the breath.